Let's Talk Small Business, the real talk, no BS podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to grow and actually enjoy the ride. I'm Mitchell Wilson. Let's get into it. I'm so excited to introduce Glenn Poulos, award-winning author of Never Sit in the Lobby. He is the co-founder, vice president, and general manager of Gap Wireless, or he was until a recent exit. And we just updated this. 4 decades in the office trenches. You've figured out exactly what to do and what to avoid to get the deal done. He is an AI and sales growth expert from Toronto, Canada. Let's talk business.
Sounds great. Well, thanks, Mitchell, for having me. It's wonderful to be here today.
Now, before we get into it, I just need to say, 4 decades, maybe I was in nappies when you were starting your career, so I've got a lot to learn from you today. You've still got more hair than me, so we'll give you that. Now, within those 4 decades, one of the things that's a hot topic right now, and it probably always is tech. Now, throughout those 4 decades, throughout your sales and career, how's that changed? Like, the people that could be listening to this will probably not even know some of the things that we used to use. How did it used to work?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, and I have, I'm always arguing with people because, like, I have some sayings and things that from the book, and some of them are like they're dated, right? Like one's called the call book factor, and they're like, "What's a call book?" Right? And I'm like, it's what came before a phone, right? And it's like a thing you open up and you write notes in it, right? And and I also have another saying: never fax the facts and never ship the shit, right? Which is a golden rule of mine, right? And and people are like, no one uses faxes anymore, so that's not a problem. I'm like, you're missing the point, right? And so the tech has changed a lot. The funny thing is, most of my 40 years in sales has been around mobile broadband wireless communication, so the cell phone, right? And that's the basis of the 2 companies. My company from 91 through 2006, and then 2007 to 2022, I had Gap Wireless, which you talked about in the intro, and then I sold it to private equity. I worked for them for a few years, and throughout that time, I've watched the technology change vastly. And but I mean, I probably was, first in line to get the latest tech that was available, right? And loved every minute of it. I'm, in that way, I guess, right? And nowadays, we're just leveraging the heck out of AI to the maximum extent possible, just in daily productivity. But I mean, you can get some real world heavy lifting done in your job using the right tools and stuff like that, right? But
with that tech kind of change, does that just mean that the process of selling has just gotten faster, or how do you think that's changed?
So I think the important thing, and this is again where I argue with some people, is like a lot of people want to argue with me and say, like, I can do it on Zoom or Teams. I can dial it in, right? And I said, okay, well, you can do that. But I said, the guy who won the order didn't, right? And because like I sell the company that I have now and the other 2 companies that I had, we sold stuff, right? They were packed in boxes. They had tape on them. You ship them to customers. People, when they're buying things like that, often want to look at them before they buy them, right? And which is why I never ship the HIT, right? And never fax the fax, right? And I'm like, they're like, no, you can do it over Zoom and this. I go, yeah, but if you were buying a private jet, would you go for a virtual tour, or would you want them to pick you up and fly you to Miami and take you out for lunch on Brickell? You know what I mean? And then fly you back.
I've never actually thought about buying a private jet, but now I will.
Yeah, exactly. And so the tools are like, it's nothing to me. I think of it always like an electric screwdriver, right? Like you can hand crank that screws into the wall, but it's a lot quicker to pick up a power drill and zip it in, right? And the same thing happens. The screw still goes in the wall, it just goes in the wall quicker, right? And same thing when you fast forward all the way to AI, you can say, give me 10 topics to talk about on today's podcast. And the thing is that I could think of the 10 things. I could. It's not like I'm not capable, but it would take me all day, right? Because my brain's just, but AI is going to give me those 10 topics like instantly. And then I'm going to, oh my God, I wouldn't even have thought of bringing up this, that, or the other thing. And then you're like, and how can I dive deeper into that? But you still have to do the talking. You still have to do the heavy lifting at the end. But the tool allows you to do it, more productively and better, in a better manner. What hasn't worked for me is, trying to get the tools to talk to my customers up front and schedule meetings. And I know in some environments that will work, but the stuff I'm selling is very high tech, electronic instrumentation, bought by the most geekiest of engineers, and they're not to be, they just can't be engaged in an automated way, right? But finding them and finding their phone numbers and where they are, and then creating marketing programs and things like that can all be automated. And so it's all about just becoming more productive, in my opinion. But still, I find that the true winners in the game of sales and business and what have you, there's still the hard meetings. They're still attending them face to face, and they're shaking hands, and
One thing you mentioned before about maybe some AI systems trying to sort of book meetings and all the rest for you. So it leads me to the question: marketing versus sales. Okay, we usually say it in one sentence: sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Can you clarify what that all means and when the marketing ends, when the sales starts?
Sure. So I have my own little thing that I made up, right? Which is that when you're in front of the customer and you're kind of doing the demo or closing the deal, doing the presentation, something like that. To me, that's sales. Everything else is marketing, right? That's the way I always start to explain it. But really, in a more textbook way of saying it, it's more like marketing creates awareness and sales creates revenue. And that's the fundamental difference, right? Most people can't really discern the difference between the two of them. But when you're sitting down, you're on LinkedIn, and you're doing this, and you're, data mining names, and then you're writing little scripts and talking to guys and trying to get them to engage. And that's really marketing, right? When
sales calls, like cold calling,
sales call,
cold
sales
calling?
call, sales call. No, sales call is selling to me typically, right? Because, so I'm talking more about the things you do in the comfort of your chair. But no, I would consider the dialing for dollars to be a sales function. And now it's right at the front end. And I mean, to me, at its core, really, it's when you get in front of the customer. But if you get them on the phone, you're selling, right? It's just all the ways of getting them to answer the phone or to, respond to an ad or click on a link or come to your website. That's all marketing, right? And so marketing makes the phone ring, sales closes the deal. And you can have the best marketing in the world, but without skilled salespeople, nothing happens. And nothing ever happens at a company until a salesman sells something, right?
Yeah, right.
And,
so we'll talk about it a little bit later in terms of your book, Never Sit in the Lobby, which is 57 winning sales factors to grow a business and build your selling. But if we were to pick out a couple of things of the do nots, where have you seen salespeople? Where have you failed in your own career in terms of your learning experience as a salesperson?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I got to pick the first one that you said, which is don't sit in the lobby, right? And we can dive into that in a second, but also don't talk more than you listen. Don't trash your competitors. Don't chase bad deals just to look busy to your boss. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Don't forget to follow up. Don't wing it. And don't stop once you've closed, right? You do want to stop talking, get out of the building and go book the order, but don't stop servicing your customer. You want to support your customer afterwards, right? Because that's where the true value really gets a chance to shine, is when your product screws up. And that's when you get a real customer, right? It's like when you buy a car and you take it to the dealer and the service is shitty, then it becomes a bad experience. But when you buy a car and something goes wrong and they take care of you, that's when you become a customer for life, right? And that's why I was warning this young sales guys, don't be afraid to answer the call when the guy's mad because his gadget broke or his widget, is failing. That's your number one opportunity to become his, he'll become your biggest advocate by servicing him properly. Grab that phone, do whatever it takes, right? And answer when the news is really bad. Make sure you phone back and tell them the news. Don't have someone else phone it in, or don't send them an email, or always be at the forefront, right? So those are a bunch of the don'ts, right? And the reason why I say don't sit in the lobby or never sit in the lobby is what I mean is when you show up, just show up on time. Don't be too early. And when you get there, don't sit down, right? Announce yourself and then just wait for the customer to come out. Don't get your phone out. Don't stare at the plaques on the wall. Don't pick up the magazine, and definitely don't text your wife about the shopping list on what's needed after work, right? You want to be at attention and standing up because for me, especially because I'm short, right? So if I'm sitting down and the guy comes in and he's tall, there's like a 4-foot difference between us, right? And I have to rise up to him. And of course, I never make it all the way. And so I want the biggest advantage I can get. And one of them is standing at attention and being alert, right? Because I've had guys, where I learned this was guys would come in and they're like, are you Glenn? And I was clued out. I was zoned out, right? And, you got to then like snap back into that moment. And it's a bad look. And the one thing that sort of permeates throughout the book is like, the book is about how not to be a pain in the ass, right? Like that's the core essence of the book. It's how to get, act, and stay in front of your clients and how to be a pleasure to do business with always, even when you lose the deal. Because over the career, especially if you're dealing with customers repetitively, like large clients where it's not a one and done, how they perceive you is going to govern your success. Because if you lose a deal and then you're a jerk, well, then they're never going to want to give you a chance at another deal. But if things play out a different way, they could be clamoring to find other ways of working with you because of the nature of the relationship that you have, right? And so don't be a pain in the ass. That's another don't, right? And
there's I still have or find people with the common perception is when we talk about sales, they're like, oh, ick, I don't want to be a salesperson. And I'm guessing they're thinking of kind of maybe the 80s styles that were in the decades.
Encyclopedia salespeople.
Yeah. So I kind of believe sales nowadays is not like, you need to do all the right things, the process, the follow-up, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think one bit you have to be pushy or salesy or sleazy, but you do need to ask, don't you? Like you do need to say and present what you've got.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. How would you talk to those people that think sales are a nasty word?
Well, yeah. So it's in a lot of ways, it's all about your mindset, right? Because if you really, really love the products that you're selling, then there becomes you get to have a more genuine approach to presenting them, right? Like if you imagine that, you're a guy and you just went out and spent way too much money on a car that you shouldn't have, and you come home to present the sale to your wife, right? You don't have a problem being, being really jubilant about it or whatever, right? You don't come across as a sleazy sales guy, right? You're like, oh my God, you should see the automatic, anti-lock brakes and the power of this and the, adaptive cruise control and the triple displays and this and that and whatever. And, and the thing is that when you've done the job right in sales, I have this thing, it's on my website called the Punch, Perfect Pitch, and Close. And when you've done it right at the end, you don't have to ask for the order, because when you've done it right and you've done all the steps correctly, the customer says to you, how much is it? How do I buy one? How can I get it? And when can you deliver it? Like those are the steps. Those are what you're going to hear. And then you just have to answer the question. When there's humming and hawing and like kicking of their, shoes against the floor and whatever, then you haven't done it right, because if they're not clamoring to figure out how to get to the next step, you kind of have to do it over because you messed it up, right?
Well, talking about that, now I'm excited. So what did you call those steps there? The punch?
The punch, perfect pitch, and close.
And close.
So the punch.
So run through this for us. I'm excited.
In the simplest step, when you get there, you have to punch them, right? And then you give the punch is you're changing their state, right? Like if you're standing somewhere and someone punches you, right? Like your state changes radically, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is that what I realized over time was that people would go in to do a presentation, right? And So often it becomes like PowerPoint or something like that, right? And like they start off and they're like, I'd like to show you our factory in like England, and we've got 1,200 people. And then we have our high volume plant in Shenzhen where we've got over 4,800 people as engineers, toiling away building gadgets or whatever, right? And people are already asleep and they're not listening, right? What I tell people is to either create a very snap change in the state, right? Like, and I usually do it by showing an exciting video or playing a sound clip with some other text or something else playing in the background, and describing, trying to create a audio visual punch that shows them getting the result of why you're there in the first place, right? And so, you might have a product that could solve one of three problems, but don't show them a punch on the problem that they're not trying to solve, right? Like maybe they're trying to increase capacity, not lower cost, right? Like maybe your thing is cheaper and it's faster, right? But don't talk to them about about saving money, because that's not why. Because if you've done your homework up front, you realize the problem that they've got is that they can't get enough, discombobulators out the back door, right? And so, imagine a world where, your discombobulated, production is now 20% faster than it ever was. And, you basically want to be already in the very, very beginning, show them the result and have them clamoring to want that, right? It's like you imagine, could, again, I'm always talking about cars because people can relate to it like instantly, right? You show them a video, they sit down to talk to you and whatever, you show them a video of them kind of like, and now with AI, it would be easy, right? Like driving the Ferrari or the Porsche or something, in the mountain roads of, somewhere, with the wind tasseling their hair and the music playing and whatever. And this would create a state of, in them that's, unmistakable, because that's the feeling they want. They want to be feeling what it would be like to be driving in a Ferrari around a mountain with the music blaring. And then that's the punch. Sorry, I rambled on a bit there, but the perfect pitch is using the Goldilocks principle, which is the power of three, right? Good, better, best, small, medium, large, right? Always package everything in threes, right? So you want to first, you're going to tell them, you're going to, you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them. Then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. That's one thing. You're going to tell them in a pack of three. You can tell them three things, not two, not four. If it's only two, you're not elaborating enough, and it's four, you've broken it down too much. You have to repurpose it into three things, right? Mm-hmm. And when in the end, when you've gone through this Goldilocks presentation of the three key things that show them getting the result that they need, at the end, they're like, oh, how do I get that? I'd like that. I'd like that in my building. I'd like that in my factory. I'd like that in my warehouse. I'd like that in my office. I'd like to have that software solving my problem. I'd like to have that tool in my toolkit or whatever. And they're like, how much is it? Right. Or what's the lead time on such a, depending on what you're selling or whatever. Right. Then, you've got them. If they don't react in that way, then you didn't do actually the proper job actually. And something's gone wrong. Right. And that's the perfect close, is when they close themselves. And
I love it.
Yeah. Because the other thing, there's all sorts of like, sort of tricky little things you can say, like, to close, like how can we get you involved in this, or, handing them a pen, where you would like to sign here, like, and there's millions of them that you see all the time, right, as examples. But those only work when they're in the state of wanting what you're selling. Otherwise, you're just annoying them again, right? And and so that's the punch perfect pitch and close.
I have seen through my career people or salespeople that have sort of gone word for word, do everything perfectly, but they've been annoying as hell.
Right.
And they haven't been the ones that have been closing the deals.
Yeah.
You talk about it before, like never be annoying and all the rest. How do you go about that? So
yeah,
you can still, by still contacting them and still being in touch, but not being annoying. What do you think about that?
Right. Well, okay. So so I was thinking of it a different angle, the way you started it. But so first of all, like, you always need to be genuine, and your rapport needs to be built in a genuine way, right? Like there's another chapter in my famous book, right? Shameless plug, right? Called Implied Familiarity Also Breeds Contempt, right?
Okay.
And I
Yep.
love all these little catchy titles and stuff, and I loved making them up, right? And I don't know if you've ever heard the saying "familiarity breeds contempt," where you've got someone that you kind of know, and then you get in a car and you go on a 3-day road trip with them, and by the time you get back, you want to kill them, and you still like them, but you
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah.
kill them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the reason why is because of hyperfamiliarity, right? Like, the sound of their breathing, the everything just gets hyper familiarized in you, and it starts to drive you crazy. Now, when they go back home to their thing of, it's not like that you don't like them. It's just, it builds contempt, right? And so
Right.
I learned that by implying familiarity with people, whereas you over familiarize yourself with them, it really upsets people, right? Where you take, where you act like you know what they like, or you act them out to dinner too soon, or to golfing and things like that, right? And there's some interesting stories in the book where I messed it up, and I had to backpedal because I was overstepping it, right? And so the thing about not being obnoxious or whatever is the you have to learn things like empathy, and I tell people, you want to learn the definitions of sympathy, empathy, and compassion, and you
Mhm.
want to learn what they are and when to use them, right? And when you apply them at the proper times, it allows you to get into the customer's space and talk to them in the appropriate way, right? And the uh I call it sort of like the three pillars of kindness is what those are, right? And because a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm so empathetic or whatever, right? And I'm like, oh, really, right? And then I realized that they have a little bit of sympathy, but they have zero empathy, right?
Right.
Because the difference is, like, sympathy is like understanding your problem, right? Where empathy is actually stopping what you're doing and exiting your body and going inside their body and
Mm.
experiencing what they're going through, like totaling their car or something,
Mm.
and feeling what it would feel like to total your car, right? Just understanding that it sucks that you totaled your car, that's sympathy, right? Compassion is wanting to alleviate their suffering, right? That's the difference, right? Sympathy, empathy, and compassion. And you need to know when to apply them all, but in much more mild ways. When you're talking to a customer or whatever, you need to be tuned into what's going on, because when you're talking twice as much as you're listening, which is the opposite of the way God gave you ears and a mouth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You're actually probably missing the cues that they're giving you that allow them to genuinely realize that you're a genuinely nice person, and the rapport will form naturally, right? And then you say, well, okay, well, what if I'm losing the deal, right? And so, like, how do I not be a jerk, or how do I build rapport when he told me I'm losing, right? And I'm like, well, so that's when I tell them, like, I'd rather be last than second, and lose very quickly, right? Because second is actually the number one loser, right? And
Mm.
so that's the only thing you've won at, right? And so I always try to lose very, very quickly. And so what people are like, what the hell are you talking about, right? And like, I'm like, look, I've in 40 years of selling, I've won and I've lost, right? But there becomes a time in every sale where becomes an unequivocal point where, for whatever reason, you're not getting the deal, right? And it could be anything, right? And I mean, if there's something that can be turned around, then that's not unequivocal. I'm talking about, like, what happens a lot of times is where you realize, because you finally made a sales call and you've been doing everything over Zoom, that there's 9 of your competitors' products installed there, and your one thing that you're quoting is really an honesty. You're keeping the competitor
Yeah.
honest,
Yep.
right? You wouldn't know that until you visited, but once you get there, you realize, holy shit, they've got IBM installed. I'm never gonna sell them Dell or whatever, right?
Mm.
They're just keeping me honest or whatever. And I immediately, at that point, quietly, politely, and with the maximum amount of respect, recuse myself from the sales process. Like, they're like saying, like, we want to do a bake off, between IBM and Dell and Compaq and whatever and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, no problem. We can get that scheduled in for you in February. Right. And they're like, well, wait, no. We not need that like in the next 2 weeks. Oh, we're way too busy for that. We're backed up for at least 6 or 8 weeks. Well, if you don't get it in like 2 weeks, Glenn, you're not going to be able to compete. And I'm like, oh, damn, that sucks. And you know what I'm saying? And I'm exaggerating for effect, but what I'm saying is I'm not going to like fly engineers in from the factory to try to convince them to buy my product when I know they're using Hewlett Packard or Apple or IBM or Dell or whatever. And of course, no one ever got fired for buying any of that, right? And so I lose quickly. And what I do is I run very, very quickly to the next sale, because all the bad salespeople are competing against the IBM guy trying to win the deal. And so I go and find the next deal and try to win it before all those salespeople in my area can catch up to me. And so it talks about servicing deals around your deals, right? You know, your deal is just the center of all your other deals. You should be selling to not only to the company you're calling on, but everyone around that company that could or should buy your products, right? And the really good salesman, he leaves the company at 4:00 knowing he's getting the deal. They're selling 10 systems, calls the wife, oh, I'm getting a great deal, gonna get that bonus, blah, blah, blah. The crappy sales guy actually drives home and brags a little bit more or whatever, stops and gets a beer. The good salesperson actually goes and makes another sales call on the way home at 4:00 and stops at a customer on the way home, right?
Does sales still excite you after 4 decades and I guess sales and stuff? Do you still get a buzz?
The only part where the answer to that is yes is when you're actually in front of the customer. And it's kind of like, if you're playing a part in a musical or something, right? Like all the practicing, that's not fun. Showing up early for the dance recitals and the dress rehearsals and getting yelled at by the director. None of that is fun, right? But every night when you're performing for the crowd, that's actually fun, right? And because so yes, that I still get a kick out of that part, but all of the people that don't answer their phone anymore, don't answer emails, like I tell people, like most people, when you email them, like they're going to go through the following process. They're going to look at their email. They're going to decide which one of these emails can I delete and not get fired. Right.
Yeah.
And if you're just one of them, you're done. Right. Yeah. And so, and that's what everyone does every day. It's like delete, right? Because they know they're not going to get fired for deleting a sales memo from a guy that they don't buy from, right? And so that's not fun. I don't get a kick out of that, right? And, that's the grind. But when you get in front of the customer, even when you're in a bad mood, when you get there, your mood changes and you become, it's what it's all about, right? And then you leave and you go back to your steady state, right? And so, yes. So that's my answer to that.
You talked about the salesperson, like the great salesperson that wins a deal and then on the way home calls someone else along the way. Like, we've got to be honest, like it takes a lot of energy and a lot of commitment to be at the top of your game when it comes to sales. Is that sustainable?
Oh, well, I think it becomes like almost a momentum thing, right? Because once you keep doing it, it builds on itself, right? Because it's like a muscle or whatever when you're working it, and when you stop, it atrophies, right? But when you're working it, it just becomes second nature. And and it's like, okay, I got to win. So now I need to do this other thing. And you have to do it, right? Just like after an exercise, you have to stretch, and nobody likes stretching.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you'll pay the price later, right? And so, I guess that's how I would answer that question.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this book a little bit. Never Sit in the Lobby. Sure. Okay, and you sort of hinted on the name of the book before. 57 winning sales factors. Okay, 57. Yeah. It's a great number. How'd we get to 57?
Yeah, well, because all the chapters that I wasn't allowed to say because they were not safe for work moved me down from like 72, right? and like I like to joke, right? When I was writing the book, I Googled like how many words do I need till the book's done, right? Yeah. And Google told me I needed 75,000 words. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna write every weekend. I'm gonna write 2,500 words until the book's done. I got 75,000 words. I sent it to this editor. She sent it back and she said, Glenn, you cannot say the F word that many times in a book. And I'm like, okay, could we agree on 1,000 words? And so and so it just happened to be kind of like the breakdown of the, the tips, the number of tips and things like that, right? Of which there some made it, some didn't make it, and these are just you can flip to any page of the book and read a tip and flip somewhere else later. You don't have to read. It's not a system. It's a guide of things. But the thing is like, I always follow the rules, right? And I mean, it's not like they're hard rules to follow, right? Like I always show up with something in my hand and something in my mind, right? People are like, what do you mean? I'm like, I always have something in my hand. It's either a quote, literature, a giveaway, donuts, something to give to them in one hand and something to offer them from my mind instantly. So I always know the exact first thing I want to know from the customer. You asked me for a quote. Here it is. I'd love to get your impression of the price. Can we just have a quick look, even in the lobby, right? Or you asked me for literature and they think you're going to email it to them. And I showed up the next day in the lobby with it. Right. And they're like, well, you asked me for literature, so I brought you the literature. They're like, oh, I didn't know you were gonna come in here and deliver it. And I'm like, well, I'm here all the time. Why wouldn't I bring it? What do you mean you're here all the time? I go, I'm here all the time. And then my other rule is never forget a face, right? And so because I don't sit in the lobby, I sit in my car. And when I'm in my car, I go through my phone because now I don't have a call book anymore. They're extinct. And I remember everyone's face. And if I can't remember their face, I go to LinkedIn and I remember their face that way. And then that way, when the guy says, everyone, and then like 3 of them walk out and I'm like, oh my God, it's Jack, George, and Paul. And they're like, oh my God, Glenn, nice to see you. And instant social proof, right? But what if Jack, George, and Paul walk out and I forgot their name for that split second? It takes me to remember. It's like, that's a shitty look. You never recover from that. They're like, that guy never remembers my name. I hate him. But when you walking down the hallway, because one of my other rules is always ask for a mini tour, right? Like you show up with the thing, you said you wanted a quote on a new computer, on a new, product line, on a new conveyor belt, on a new tow motor, whatever it is, right? Can I see where it's going to be set up? And they're like, well, I promise I won't sell any encyclopedias while I'm in here. I just want to have a quick look where you're going to use it and get out of your hair. It's a mini tour, right? Because tours take all fucking day. Pardon my language. Sorry. And so you got to get behind the lobby because once you do, that's where you get to see Jack, George, Sally, whatever, right? And you get to see the mouse pads and the t-shirts and the coffee mugs that are on the desks as you're walking back to that location if you haven't already been there. And so you know who your competition is because they're the ones that have already been there dropping off something in their hand and something in their mind, right? And so you know the lay of the land. You can also see, hey, is my one of one or am I, again, like I said before, one of 9 competing against some dude that's just keeping the competition honest, right? You can't see any of that from the lobby, right? And so see how the rules, they all stack, right? And while I'm walking to the warehouse to see the setup or to the production line or to the engineering lab or the HR facility, whatever, I want to make sure I don't get caught with forgetting people's names because they're like, oh, he always remembers my name. And it just leaves them with this great feeling. And so those are like 6 or whatever a few of the rules. Why would you not follow them all the time?
It's just come to mind when you talked about getting past the lobby, bringing back just a little bit, getting past gatekeepers to actually get to the person that you need to talk to when it comes to sales. Obviously, the receptionist or the PA or whoever it is that their job is to stop you coming through so you don't annoy me.
Yeah.
How do we get past those people? You got some tips?
Yeah. So, well, I can tell you one thing is that if you just show up and you're like cold calling, you're not going to get past them because that's why they're gatekeepers and that's why they're there, right?
Yeah.
So you really do need to try to have an anchor. That's why I say never fax the facts and never ship the shit, right? Because every time someone asks you for something, if you hand deliver it, it's an excuse for you to go, right? And so then when she says, is he expecting you? Goddamn right, he's expecting me. He asked me to drop off this literature, right? But there's a whole bunch of other rules that come into play. So he says, can you send me a brochure? And I'm like, no problem. I'm going to be there on Thursday. Can I drop it off? He's like, oh, I'm really busy. I'm like, no problem. I'll drop it in the lobby. And so he's like, okay, that's fine. So on Thursday, I show up. And knowing that I'm going to be there, I call everyone else at that company that I've ever talked to. And I try to get secondary and tertiary meetings with them, right? but I have the literature, something in my hand. I got the thing in my mind I want to ask him about or whatever. He comes, and then the receptionist says, "Is he expecting you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he asked me to bring in this literature." And she's like, "Okay." She calls him up and she says, "Hey, Jack, Glenn's in the lobby." And he forgot that he told me he was too busy. 99% of the time, he forgets that he was too busy, right? Yeah. And usually if she's a bit of a cantankerous one, I bring my magic serum, which is donuts, right? I do it, come in the morning, it has to be before 10:30, bring a dozen donuts, right? I'm from Canada, right? So donuts are the be all and the end all, right? And so I always bring donuts, right? But never after 10:30, because then you ruin their lunch and they'll hate you for it. And so but he comes down and then I gives it to him, and then I get him to give me the mini tour or whatever. Then I say, "Hey, you know what? I had something else in my briefcase here for Jack over in, engineering. Could you drop me by his desk so I can plop it down?" "No problem. We'll take a detour." He takes you over there or whatever. Then you try to, if the guy is or isn't expecting you or whatever, you got to be skilled. And maybe you do have to just drop it and run, or maybe he'll leave you there and the other guy will take you to the front and walk you out, but you kind of meander your way around, right? And
so you're really networking like within the business, aren't you?
Well, yeah, because also, and for instance, let's say I say, "Can you take me over to Paul in engineering?" Right? And he takes me, and Paul's kind of busy or whatever. I said, "Well, I really wanted to, do you think I could get a few minutes next week?" And he's like, "Yeah, that wouldn't be a problem." "Okay, well, I'm going to be back here on Thursday in the morning with donuts for the cantankerous lady out front, right? How about 10 o'clock? "Yeah, that'll be fine." So now I have a firm meeting with Paul at 10 in a week. Now I have a week to schedule secondary and tertiary meetings with everyone in that company that I know for whatever reason that makes sense. Right. And I know what I'm doing on Thursday morning, and I know all the companies that are around that company. And so I spend my time trying to figure out ways and means of getting in front of all those places. Right. And it becomes so I almost never have to prospect for what I got to do, because I already set it up at the last due. I get my next due in order. I don't like it when people are like, "Oh, I usually spend Fridays and Mondays in the office." I'm like, "What do you mean? You take 4-day weekends?" Right? What do you mean? Like Friday, I gotta follow up, and Monday I gotta get things organized. And I'm like, "No, that's not how you do it. It's like all in real time. It's like one perpetual machine moving forward that never stops, right?" Because it's I always say in our office, in the sales room, that's the only room where the chairs, the nails point up. Right. And so that it's very uncomfortable, right? And very uncomfortable chairs. And
Now, clearly you've had a long and exciting career in sales. If you could go back to the first decade that you were in sales, what do you think you would tell yourself? What are the things that you know now that you probably wish you knew back then, that's only come through experience rather than just, learning about it from some person?
Yeah, there's that whole thing about it really is the journey, not the destination, because it's all of that. It's like winning the lottery. It's not like winning the lottery is great and everything, but it's the thought of winning the lottery that you're really paying for, that $1 ticket, right?
Yep.
That's what you're paying for, right? Is the dream. And the ticket's free, and you're paying for the dreams, right? And so is to relish those moments. And it's not really about the money in a way. Obviously it's about the money, but I mean, the money never changes anything, and enough is never enough. And and you're not a different person at any place along the way. Enjoy that ride, because that's the fun part, is the doing of it all, right? And and that's probably the most important thing. And having sold 2 companies, and with lots of highs and lows involved in all of that, financially and otherwise, I can say, the withs and the withouts, they don't matter. I was never a different person, right?
Yeah.
And none of it changed me, fundamentally. And after selling my last company and did very well by it, I went out and did it again, because I realized that's really for me what it was all about. And now I'm back in a 10-man company trying to grow it. But this time I don't have a partner. I'm doing it alone. And that's my goal. And that's the difference. And working harder than I've ever worked, I think, and been more stressed out than I've ever been in a long time, but still having a great time doing it. Right.
Look, I resonate with that. I remember just sold a company and we were having a baby as well at
Yeah.
the same time. He'd just been born, and my wife keeps on saying to me, 4, Mitchell, meaning it was 4 days that it took you to come home with another idea and tell me that you were going to do this all
Yeah.
again. So
Yeah.
maybe it's just
There you go.
it's the journey. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I need to ask you about this last thing before you go, Glenn. Pickleball.
Yeah.
I'm in New
Yeah.
Zealand right now. We hear a lot about it. I think it is sort of gaining in popularity, but I actually haven't seen a court nearby me. All the rest. You're a fan, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I play it. Yeah, I do play it. It's I stumbled across it just sort of like, just coincidentally a while back, and it was actually just before the pandemic, actually. And so it's been a while that I've been playing it, but it's a game that you can go like on a Friday night to a pickup game at any kind of an event or whatever, and by the end of the night, you know how to play pickleball. Right? You don't have all the rules memorized or whatever, but you can play the game and you're having fun. Mm-hmm. Whereas try that with tennis. Like they seem the same, but they're completely different, right? Like I still take tennis lessons and I still can't play tennis, right? Like, but pickleball, and of course you're not, and you're graded from like a 2-0 up to a 5-0 and then a pro. Like it's a 3-5 or you're a 3-7-5 or a 4-0 or, and everyone in pickleball knows what that means, right? But, but you don't start at that level, and some people progress quicker, but you quickly get to your number, and then you kind of stay there, and you have to work really hard to get beyond it if you want, or you just stay there and there's thousands of people at that same level that will play with you. And there's pickup matches everywhere. Like for instance, now the business that I bought is in Florida, and like there's like 75 court pickleball places, and they're numbered on your skill level, and you just stand there and they just grab you, and when 4 people are you get allotted and you're in, and you don't have to go with 4 people. You just show up, and they just keep matching you up, and
that's bigger than even I thought, actually. So I need to give this a go. Because I probably would love to play tennis. Yeah, I would be no good at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so once again, Never Sit in the Lobby by Glenn Poulos. Did I pronounce that right again?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
cool.
Yeah. Usually I say shoeless Poulos, right? But
now,
yeah.
We'll find this on Amazon. Anyone can grab it. Listening to this, head on to Amazon, check it out. Honestly, it's been really exciting listening to you, especially with the experience that you bring to the sales game, and that obviously everything's changed over the last 40-odd years, but nothing's changed in essence, I guess. Yeah, so that's been really cool. Hey, this has been Let's Talk Business. Appreciate you having on here, and maybe I'd love to get back on again sometime.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be amazing. I'd love to. Thanks, Mitchell.
Yeah. Hey, that's great. Thanks so much, Glenn. Let's talk small business. I appreciate you tuning in. If you got value, hit subscribe, like, or drop a comment. It spreads the word and might just help another legend get their breakthrough.